What if Stephen Lightfoot is right and in like 10 years time, Stephen King gets arrested and Stephen Lightfoot's just sat there going like, I told ya. It's kind of like if Alex Jones's InfoWars had a dating section. I am a 100% pure American hero who discovered hard evidence in Lennon's murder and is brave enough to go public with everything until the world knows and Stephen King is jailed for murder. Hello, welcome back to my channel. There are a lot of new subscribers here. A lot of people watched my previous video about the garden. We're not talking about the garden today, my friends. We are talking about something that is more weird, more wonderful. Before we get into it, if you like the kind of videos that I'm creating, which are going to be more focused on kind of like weirdness, internet mysteries, with a few book videos peppered in, then make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you hit the notification bell, then you will never miss being able to stare at this ugly mug. So get your tea, settle in. We are doing a dive into the world of one man's conspiracy theory regarding the murder of John Lennon. Let's get into it. So as most of us know, John Lennon was murdered on December 8th, 1980 by someone called Mark David Chapman. Mark David Chapman was kind of like a fan of John Lennon. There's a photograph that was taken about 4 hours before the murder where he's asking John Lennon to give him his autograph. It's also widely known that he planned to cite The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger as like his manifesto and that he stuck around at the crime scene reading it. So Mark David Chapman is still in prison today. He's been denied parole 11 times so far. However, there is an alternative theory to the official story. The theory being that Mark David Chapman is no more than a paid actor and that the real perpetrator of the crime is none other than legendary horror author Stephen King.
It's pretty scary, actually.
I like The Shining, I like the film It. I've never read the book because it's so bloody long, but I have read The Stand, which I enjoyed even if it is a little overrated. So what I'm trying to say is if he did murder John Lennon, I ain't gonna defend him because he ain't my boy, but I don't think he did. So this conspiracy theory is right up my street because it comes from one man. His name is Stephen Lightfoot, and he claims to have stumbled across evidence that proves without a doubt that Mark David Chapman did not murder John Lennon. And the main perpetrators of this conspiracy are Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, and Stephen King. Now, he claims to have found the evidence for this theory in bold print headlines from magazines such as Time, Newsweek, and US News and World Report. He claims that there are secret government codes buried within these headlines that only he has managed to crack. And this is where things start to get a little Pepe Silvia.
Take a look at this. Jesus Christ, that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Now, LennonMurderTruth.com is where Stephen Lightfoot has chosen to publish all of his smoking gun evidence. The main bones of the theory are on this website, but you can also, for a steal of $10, buy his booklet. It's 24 pages and he apparently goes into even more detail. So we'll begin with one of the most bizarre claims, and that's the physical resemblance between Mark David Chapman and Stephen King. Right out the gate, it's a little bit sus. And by a little bit sus, I mean a lot sus. These blokes do not look like each other. I mean, I can't see it outside of having a very similar haircut and the same kind of glasses. But then like, if you're using that as a barometer, then pretty much every bloke in the world looks the same. So a direct quote from Stephen Lightfoot is as follows. This is the famous photograph that was shown to the public. It shows John Lennon signing the Killer's album just hours before the murder. Look, it's Stephen King, not Mark David Chapman. I really want to get through this video without laughing. He then goes on to say that Mark David Chapman is a paid patsy, that he's nothing more than a Stephen King lookalike, and his whole role in this thing was basically designed to take the fall for Stephen King. This is the thing I love about the world that we live in. Like, somebody could just look at this and go, do you know what? Those two blokes look alike, therefore the actual murderer wasn't the murderer. It was author of Cujo, Stephen King.
Pepe Silvia, Pepe Silvia. I look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Silvia.
Stephen Lightfoot goes on to say that he cracked the name of the killer from an issue of US News and World Report from November 24th, 1980. Basically, a bloke called Corporal Roger Chapman wrote a letter to the magazine, and he's a soldier, and he basically said, like, Ronald Reagan's got control of the army. I'm worried about what he's going to do. I don't know where I'm going to be deployed. I'm a bit nervous. And next to his letter is another letter by someone called David V. King, printed 3 weeks before the crime, Mark David Chapman, the alleged name of the killer, attached to a letter to the editor where he explains that Reagan is moving him armed into a hostile square. Mark David King Chapman. I mean, if that's not smoking gun evidence, I don't know what is. My God. I mean, the government's awful. They're barely even covering it up at this point. This, combined with the fact that they've got the same hair and the same glasses, I don't think we need any more evidence at this point.
I'm having a panic attack. I'm actually having a panic
Will
attack.
you settle down and have another cup of coffee?
The next part of the conspiracy theory that Stephen Lightfoot breaks down for us very kindly is the secret government codes that are planted in issues of magazines leading up to and after Lennon's murder. One of the huge pieces of evidence that Stephen Lightfoot uses is an article from Time magazine with the headline, "Who's in, who's out?" This article is in reference to Ronald Reagan picking his new cabinet. But Stephen Lightfoot claims that the headline actually reads, "Reagan's in, Lennon's out." So again, I don't want to speak out of turn. Let's go for a direct quote from Stephen Lightfoot himself. "Along with other strange behaviour in the headlines of these magazines, these were my first discoveries relating to evidence in Lennon's murder, evidence in government bold print codes that only exist in issues for 5 months surrounding the crime." Some of these bold print headlines are in Stephen Lightfoot's world, all of these headlines add up to a vast government conspiracy. They're peppering in all of these keywords and codes that only Stephen Lightfoot has managed to decipher. It's also like that film Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's very niche, but it's also got Julia Roberts in. He basically plays this guy and he's got a newsletter full of conspiracies and he thinks like the government's out to get him and they're doing all kinds of stuff. Nobody believes him. Everyone thinks he's a whack job. Everybody's like, "Mel, you are on something, mate." But it turns out that he's right. So like that makes me think, what if Stephen Lightfoot is right and in like 10 years time Stephen King gets arrested and Stephen Lightfoot's just sat there going like, "I told you, I had a 24-page booklet on this. I had a website, LennonMurderTruth.com, and all of you people just took the piss out of me. There was that bloody girl on YouTube who made a video about me taking the piss." I mean, honestly, imagine.
What do I find out, man? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Silvia.
There is more. Past the government codes and the striking similarities between Mark David Chapman and Stephen King, Stephen Lightfoot takes excerpts out of Stephen King's books and kind of says like, "Look, this is evidence." And as you would imagine, the excerpts have nothing to do with John Lennon's murder and are merely excerpts from a horror novel. This is taken from Stephen King's 1979 book, The Dead Zone. "He began to assemble the rifle. Each click echoed back just once, solemnly, the sound of a cocking pistol. He loaded the Remington with 5 bullets, placed it across his knees, and waited." I mean, obviously, it's just obvious. Like, Stephen King is a horror novelist. I'm not sure if Stephen Lightfoot actually understands this. Stephen Lightfoot also goes on to pick out interviews that Stephen King has done, specifically a June 1983 Playboy magazine interview, where the interviewer asks Stephen King how far he will go to get the desired effect from his reader. The desired effect being like horror, fear, terror. And Stephen King says, "As far as I have to, until the reader becomes convinced that he's in the hands of a genuine, gibbering, certifiable homicidal maniac, I'll do anything it takes." And obviously Stephen Lightfoot has seen this, highlighted it and gone, "This is what I'm talking about. Man's a homicidal maniac." What he leaves out of his like highlighted portion is actually quite interesting because Stephen King goes on to say, "Evil is basically stupid and unimaginative and doesn't need creative inspiration from me or anybody else. But despite knowing all that rationally, I have to admit that it is unsettling to feel that I could be linked in any way, however tenuous, to somebody else's murder. So if I sound defensive, it's because I am." And what I think Stephen King's referring to at the time is kind of like his books were coming out in the early 80s. And obviously in the 80s, satanic panic was a huge thing.
New and intense scrutiny on the activities of satanic cults.
Stories of devil worship and satanic cults corrupting young minds.
Unbelievable crime at the hands of satanic cults.
Yeah, kind of like this moral panic around anything that was kind of macabre, occult, horror, which is kind of where I think Stephen Lightfoot's theory is born from. It's almost as if he's kind of equating equating Stephen King's love of horror and darkness to being a perpetrator of that same horror and darkness himself, which he very clearly isn't. You know, as we have seen recently with like celebrity downfalls, people love a celebrity scandal. So if somebody like Stephen King was responsible for one of the most upsetting and infamous murders in popular culture history, then I think the world would want to know about it. But in Stephen Lightfoot's mind, the world is against him and the media is all in on the conspiracy. If there was any kind of smoking gun evidence, then I think people would be interested and they'd want to hear it. And if there was a bit of evidence that was somewhat believable, you might sit back and go, okay, I'm willing to listen. But there's really nothing here. The more you look at LennonMurderTruth.com, the more you get sucked into this weird rabbit hole that's never ending, and none of it makes sense.
My way down to Carol in HR, and I knock on her door and I say, Carol! Carol, I gotta talk to you about Pepe!
Which brings us on to our last piece of evidence in this strange story. This is a letter that Stephen Lightfoot got from some dude called Dennis C. Lee. The letter from Dennis C. Lee is clearly somebody trolling in 1984. Unfortunately, YouTube didn't exist, TikTok weren't a thing, Twitter weren't a thing. So if you wanted to troll people, you had to do it by letter format, which is like long. Hats off to anybody that was trolling by letter in 1984. Now, he claims in his letter that Stephen Lightfoot needs to kind of cease his investigation, but because he won't, he's going to clue him into something. Now, what Stephen Lightfoot has done on his website is he's put this next to an actual letter that he received from Stephen King. Now, Stephen King was actually a top bloke in his letter. He basically said, like, I hope you're all right, mate. You know I didn't murder John Lennon. Maybe it's time to seek out some professional help. Like, he could have been a real asshole. We're talking about somebody that's got like all of the power, legal power, money, fame to crush somebody like Stephen Lightfoot. But he doesn't. He sends this kind of like quite nice letter just saying like, please stop this conspiracy theory, you know I didn't do it, please leave me alone. Now, instead of Stephen Lightfoot going, all right, maybe I'll step back and have a think about it, he's honed in on a word in both of these letters, and that's the word as. And he basically claims that because this word looks remotely similar in both letters, that's proof that both letters are from Stephen King. When you actually look into it, the word as doesn't look similar. It's about as similar as Stephen King and Mark David Chapman.
Now, calm down, because here's one thing that's not gonna happen.
What?
We're not gonna get fired.
We're not.
Because we've already been fired.
Now, there is another part of Stephen Lightfoot's website, and that is kind of like the footnotes and new developments section. This kind of works as Stephen Lightfoot's blog to the world. In it, he claims to have run Stephen King out of Maine by his constant presence and his protests on the street, and that he's since followed him down to Florida. Completely convinced of Stephen King's guilt, Stephen Lightfoot has been standing on street corners down in Florida, and he's been harassing Stephen King for years. You know, he holds up signs saying, if it's not true, then why doesn't he sue me? And I think Stephen King's letter to him makes it very obvious why he doesn't want to sue. Stephen Lightfoot goes on to talk about how Stephen King is actually stalking him and wants to kill him or put him in jail. Now, I understand why Stephen King doesn't want to sue him for slander, and I think it's a good thing that he doesn't. I also think it's a good thing that he's barely even acknowledged Stephen Lightfoot's existence. And while I can't even imagine how it must feel to be Stephen King and have this guy out there that's convinced that you've murdered somebody, you also have to commend the dedication of one man to stick to this story that's clearly false for around 30 years. I feel like he's going to come for me. I really do. I feel like I'm going to see him pop up in the comment section and he's going to accuse me of being in cahoots with Stephen King. He's going to be like, you've made this video to discredit me. Stephen King's paying you. And all I want to say is, yes, I am. Stephen King is paying me handsomely to make this video. And now a word from our sponsor. Have you read Stephen King's books? From The Shining to Cujo, world-renowned novelist, known for his terrifying work. Stephen King is such a good guy. So if you'd like to read Stephen King's latest book, then you can use my code LENNONSOUT for 10% off your purchase. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Stephen King. I appreciate you.
Barney, he's the guy who tipped me off to Pepe Silvia.
Barney? Who the hell is Barney?
One of my last points on Stephen Lightfoot's website, which I absolutely love, is his About Me page. It's the best part, and it kind of reads like a strange singles ad. It's kind of like if Alex Jones's InfoWars had a dating section.
Are you looking for me? I'm looking for someone.
He says, again, his own words, regarding what you may or may not have read or heard about me, let me assure you that it is almost all jealous hogwash. I am a 100% pure American hero who discovered hard evidence in Lennon's murder and is brave enough to go public with everything until the world knows and Stephen King is jailed for murder. At present, I am a 61-year-old, athletic, young-looking man who knows more about our sick planet than most of you do. Now, I know I'm taking the piss a little bit, but I do wonder how this has actually affected Stephen King, just knowing that this guy is out there. It has to be a little bit unsettling. And you also have to have a little bit of empathy for Stephen Lightfoot, because he has dedicated his life to this theory. He truly believes that he is out there spreading truth. I don't think anybody can do this conspiracy justice apart from Stephen Lightfoot, because he is the only person that actually understands it. And I challenge anyone to do a better job breaking down this conspiracy theory, because it was hard work trying to wrap my head around this one. I really do hope that I haven't converted anybody to this conspiracy theory. Imagine that if somebody watched my video and they were like, there's this girl on the internet that's talking about how Stephen King murdered John Lennon, and now I fully believe it. So that was another weird Wednesday, another strange internet rabbit hole that I fell down, and I'm dragging you with me. The videos on this channel are kind of going to be more like this from now on. I just feel like this is more natural for me. Anybody that knows me in real life knows that I just chat shit about internet weirdness all day long. Some of the upcoming Weird Wednesday videos I've got on this channel include the missing people in national parks, Harry Styles and Taylor Swift vehicular manslaughter, the Love Has Won cult, one of my favourite conspiracy theories about a bottomless hole in Washington. Thank you for watching the video. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next Weird Wednesday. Remember, always expose the truth.
What the hell is Day Bow Bow?